I like my bike now, I just wish it was electric. That is a sentiment that I've heard over 1,000 conversations from riders of standard mountain bikes who haven't made the electric leap. And many of them have further good cause for not doing it too, because e-bikes are heavier and they handle differently, or they're just in love with the bike they've got, so why give that up? And that's what leads to products like this, the Bimotal Elevate. An e-bike conversion kit, but this one is really unique in its approach. Unlike a lot of options, it's not replacing one of your wheels or trying to find its way onto your bottom bracket, but instead it attaches to your brake mounts and puts a big old gear next to your brake rotor to power that instead. And this mounting system means you can actually pop the motor and battery off in just seconds, so you can actually keep the way your bike handles right now. It's a pretty cool and ambitious approach. So will this really let you have your cake and eat it too? Let's find out in today's review. Hey everybody, Griffin here, and welcome to Electric Bike Report, your go-to source for e-bike testing and analysis. We've also got a once-a-week show covering industry news, Q&A, and trail system highlights, so make sure you're subscribed to catch it all. Now today's review is a little different. I'm not focusing on a bike, but rather a motor that can attach to a whole bunch of bikes. Now before we dive into how the Bimotal Elevate performs, let's actually zoom out and first understand the problem it's trying to solve. Millions of mountain bikes are sold every year, and while EMTBs are gaining popularity, they're still just a small fraction of the market. So why hasn't the shift happened faster? So cost is one big reason, but it's also about weight. The extra heft from motors and batteries changes how a bike handles. Still, e-bikes are running figurative and sometimes literal laps around traditional mountain bikers out on the trails, so the advantages are clear. So enter the inspiration for Bimotal's Elevate, a motor you can use when you want it, and then ditch it when you don't. The founder of Bimotal is a former Tesla engineer who needed a little extra help after an injury made riding tougher, and after several years of development, the Elevate emerged as the solution as a way to electrify a ride, but not fundamentally alter it too much. After a few weeks of testing, here's everything that stood out and how it compares to other products on the market. First, the brake mount system is kinda genius. You do have to install some hardware onto your bike. The kit includes a proprietary rotor and gear. The rotor itself is pretty standard, but tucked behind it is the gear, sitting close to, but not touching the spokes. It fits most mountain bikes as long as you're using a 4-piston caliper system with mounts on the seat stay, not the chainstay. Bimotal has mentioned solutions are in the works for different mounting setups, but as long as you've got seat stay mounts, you can electrify anything from a commuter bike to something like the specialized stump jumper tester that we have here. Another awesome part about this mounting system, you're not messing with your hubs or cranks like you would with other motor kits. Your bike stays pretty much what it was, just with a little extra hardware. Plus, you're not taxing those components significantly more either. The final big benefit of this setup, you can share one motor across different bikes. If you have an XC bike and an Enduro, you just buy 2 mounting kits and 1 motor and battery. That's where the $2,000 price tag starts to make some sense. Swapping out multiple bikes for full e-bike equivalents would get expensive fast, but sharing one motor cuts the cost per bike way down. And second, the motor itself. This is a throttle operated system that you can modulate, just a little boost to help you pedal or really crank it up when you want to fly. It's got 750 watts of power and 70 Newton meters of peak torque. And for something that weighs just 3.3 pounds, that's actually a ton of power to such a tiny device. Plus, because all that drive forces pressure against the metal gear instead of pushing through the drivetrain like most EMTBs, this thing can really rip without the usual limiting factors. Third, and kind of the big picture takeaway here, the combination of the mounting system and motor gives you a huge climbing advantage. But if you're worried about the extra weight on the downhill, you can pop the motor and battery off in under a minute and ride your bike like you always have. We'll get into it more later, but honestly, I'd argue most riders will be fine just leaving it on. Still, the fact that you can toss the system into a pack and bomb through chatter or hit jumps like normal is awesome. Now those are the main things you need to know about the Elevate. Now let's take a closer look at the total ride experience. As far as install goes, it seems pretty straightforward. Full disclosure, I haven't done it myself since we had the Stumpy brought in already set up, but the instructions and videos are detailed. If you're the kind of person who can replace a cassette, brakes, or work on your own fork, you're probably mechanically inclined enough to do it yourself. But let's talk first about weight. The battery is a 300 watt-hour pack and weighs 3.4 pounds. The motor, again, weighs 3.3 pounds, and all the mounting hardware adds another 2.2 pounds, which is your only fixed weight add. Altogether, you're adding 8.8 pounds, which on a standard mountain bike puts you in the ballpark of SL e-bike weights. Those typically start around 40 pounds, but with a bit more power here in this motor than many of the SL ones. The motor's power is just immediately apparent. The two big driving components are the motor's proprietary plastic gear and the larger metal gear on the rotor. The internal plastic gear is rated for 1,000 miles of use and the metal gear up to 3,000 miles. They're heavy duty, they don't require lube or maintenance, and they handle all the driving force. And my, oh my, do they handle it well. The system can absolutely crank things along. It does a great job boosting a rider effortlessly when you hit the throttle, but you'll get better battery efficiency if you throttle and pedal at the same time. And no, it doesn't get in the way of your ride or add noticeable drag either. It's got bearings and basically free wheels when not in use, so the only thing slowing you down when pedaling without the motor is the added weight. As of right now, it's just a Class 2 setup, throttle only, which may have some trail limitations, but Bimotal says they're working on a pedal sensor that'll be compatible with the current motors being sold. So pedal assist is coming soon, which will really open up possibilities for more technical climbing. For now, with just a throttle, it's better suited for non-technical single track. It's basically like having a shuttle service to help climbs and keep you fresh for the downhill. Finding the right throttle placement can be a little tricky with dropper and gear levers, but we inverted ours so you push up to engage. We really liked this, and it basically made it impossible to accidentally engage it. In terms of its overall feel, it strikes a pretty nice balance how the power comes out. One of my biggest concerns with throttle use off-road is the bike shooting out from under me on climbs. Trust me, it's happened on some overpowered motors before. But this system has enough power to move my 230-pound frame up steep grades without help, and it's not so aggressive that it felt sketchy or damaging to the trail. As for the battery, the capacity isn't huge, but I do think it is practical. Unlike emtbs, which designed the whole frame around fitting a motor and battery, this is a retrofit, so the smaller form factor makes sense. And if you want more juice, you can always buy extra battery packs and carry them with you. One thing that could be improved with it is the visibility. There aren't any LED indicators on the battery itself, so you have to check the app for an accurate readout. Now, one consideration is mounting the battery replaces your bottle cage. If you use a hydration bladder, it's no big deal, but if you rely on a bottle, it could be kind of a bummer. An upside of the smaller battery is that it can also charge in as little as 90 minutes. And when you want to ride without the motor and battery, it is super easy. Just pull the two levers, and they're kind of like seat collars, unplug the battery connector and undo the Velcro, and voila, you're ready to ride your regular bike again. Bimotal has a live app on the Android Play Store, while the iOS app is currently in beta, and that's the one that I used. The app itself is fairly minimalistic, but it does allow for useful customizations. If you use a phone mount, you can check the real-time power output in watts and torque, and it has a temperature gauge of the motor to know if it's running too hot. There are 3 different ride modes to pick from: range, trail, and boost. Each comes with preset torque, watt, and throttle responsiveness levels, and a cap at 20 mph speeds. Now, I found that standard range to work fairly mellowly, while the other 2 had a lot more kick. You have the option of tailoring the outputs to your preference across the 3 modes. We didn't really deviate much from their preset limits, but it's nice to have the option. Now, one way Bimotal could improve the experience is by adding a button you fix to the handlebars that allows you to toggle the different modes. We really don't feel the need to change them too much, but since trails can vary wildly, it would be nice to be able to change the settings on the fly rather than having to stop and get your phone out. And look, the app is still in its infancy, and there's a lot more data we'd like to see added to it, like odometer settings or maintenance reminders or more. But for right now, it is straightforward, easy to tailor, and easy to use, which is a really solid start. Bimotal sets range expectations at either 10 to 20 miles or 1,500 to 2,500 feet of climbing. So to test this, we rode it on our standard EMTB test course, which features a mix of green, blue, and black single track. Now, since the Elevate works best when it supports pedaling and not replacing it, we did the test in the bike's standard middle setting of trail, providing power when needed without overboosting on more technical sections. And of course, to help conserve the battery just a little bit. Now, in our testing, it covered 15.7 miles with 1,179 feet of elevation gain, and that's with near constant use of the motor and a 170-pound test rider. So our results lined up with the brand's expectations, and if I'm being honest, we likely used the system a bit more aggressively than necessary. A system like this is really intended for key climbing sections, not near constant engagement like most EMTBs, so it was a pretty solid showing. This is a one-of-one unit that we've tested so far, so I don't really have comparative data yet, but honestly, I was expecting something closer to the 10-mile mark. My gut reaction was that it was impressive how much climbing we got out of a 300 watt-hour battery, and nice to know that you can hot swap easily if you buy a second one. We tested the Elevate system 3 times across 2 locations. Location number 1 was our standard hill test location where all bikes we review go to, from cruisers to cargo bikes, and that's at our beloved Hellhole Trail. It's a 1/3 of a mile paved climb with a steep 12% average grade. We tried it using just the throttle, and then again with a mix of throttle and pedaling. Then we took it to our EMTB exclusive water tower climb, which spans 0.86 miles with an average 5.5% grade, where we did just the mix of pedaling and throttle to more closely line it up with other EMTBs. I'll send it to our dedicated hill tester, Justin, to show you how it did.
All right, we are out here on the Bimotal Elevate, and this is a throttle system right now, so we're doing the throttle test off Hellhole. I don't have a speed app, so I can't tell you exactly how fast I'm going, but I'm really curious to see how this does. It has nice torque, especially when you do a torque per weight rating on the system. You can hear it's a little bit louder, but it feels very powerful right now. So I'm gonna let you listen to it from here through this next steep, punchy section. So yeah, climbing solid. You can hear, especially as I get a little faster, the motor ramp up on noise there. You can definitely hear it, but it's a very impressive system. Let me get past them. Just on your left here. Thank you. And so, to be honest, it did a little better than I think, at least from a feel standpoint. We'll check the tape, see how it does, and then turn around and do a pedal test with it. All right, we are back out testing the Bimotal Elevate, and now I've got the throttle on full power, and I'm pedaling with it as well, which is how you normally ride this, unless you just really want to shuttle and kind of be a little lazy to get the top of the single track and then bomb downhill. So we're going to see how it does. The system's unique in that it puts the power through the disc brake, and so I'm able to pedal with it and really add to the power. I'm not pedaling crazy hard. I'd actually say a little less than I do on like some of the mid-drive EMTBs. I'll let you listen here. So I'd say it's just as loud as when I was doing throttle only. Feels like I'm going a bit faster, which makes sense again. So I'm adding to it. It feels really good. So we'll get to the top and see how this compares to other systems. Okay, now we are doing the water tower climb on the Bimotal Elevate. And I mean, to be honest, it did really well on Hellhole. So curious to see how it does here. You know, the bike will play into it a little bit in terms of how well, you know, it grips, etc. But most of this again is the motor, and with the torque that this motor has, you know, it's not as much as some of the mid drives, but all of that again is going into the bike, into the rear wheel, and then I can pedal on top of it, and so it does just feel really good when I'm pedaling with it. Still a little awkward with the throttle scenario, and I'm sure once I get the torque sensor, we'll obviously need to redo this. But for now, really curious to see how this does. So far it feels pretty good. I'm gonna let you listen for the next little bit as I get a good feel for it. So noise level, you can definitely hear it. Right now I'm going above that 15, so it's not giving me anything. When it kicks in, motor right now, so I'm kind of the loud side. The power, like this throttle is mostly kind of off and on, so I don't have a ton of power modulation there. Again, feels more peppy than I would expect, but the bike's also really light. So very unique system, very unique feel, and climbing up something like this, I mean, I could do this all day. I guess I'm pedaling and adding to it, but not a ton. So if you are climbing up a double track, then bomb it downhill, I have a feeling you're gonna like it. That's kind of what it's built for right now with the throttle scenario. But definitely feels like that torque is gonna give us a good, you know, the torque in the watts is gonna give us a good result here. Let's go check and then we'll analyze it.
On Hellhole, we made it to the top using just the throttle in 1 minute and 16 seconds with 14.3 mph average speed. When we ran it again with the mix of throttle and pedaling, the time improved to 1 minute and 6 seconds with a 16.4 mph average. The throttle-only result currently ranks 30th out of 151 throttle tests accomplished by Justin, while the pedal-assisted result ranks 19th out of 227 bikes that he's tested. Then on the water tower climb, it reached the top in 3 minutes and 14 seconds at a 17 mph average. And that blazed past the average of 3 minutes and 35 seconds or 14.6 mph of EMTBs that we've tried there. And it would put it third all time on the podium. Here's what I love about those results. That kind of power is seriously impressive and speaks to the level of engineering here. Yes, this setup has some advantages since it's one of the lighter systems we've tested and the total weight of the bike is undercutting most EMTBs, but still, those are blazing times. The results further support the argument that if the shuttle is shut down, you might be able to find ways to still get laps in by blazing up the trail with the help of a surprisingly capable motor. Or you can turn an otherwise slog uphill on an enduro into a pretty easy time with this motor added on.
Hey everybody, welcome to the ride quality portion of our review. This is a review that is, I mean, as you guys know already, it's a product that is totally different than anything that we've done before. However, I can't think that there aren't a lot of you out there that haven't thought to yourselves, man, I just wish they could make an e-version of my bike, right? Like, I remember when e-bikes first came out, thinking to myself, God, they're cool, but it's just not quite here, it's just not quite there, whatever, right? So, I mean, there's many of us out there that the mountain bike and think it would be cool if. So, I know that another common thought in the e-mountain bike world is, hey, the cost of e-mountain bikes is just insane. How can you possibly in your right mind think it's okay to spend X, whatever it is, whatever that number is for you, right? How can that be? How can it be? How can it cost that much? Well, I don't know if this is where the idea for this system came from. However, I do think that there's a lot of people out there that could really benefit from this bimodal e-bike conversion. Today, we've got this system hooked up, this motor and battery hooked up to a Stump Jumper Evo, the aluminum version. So a lot of people have given this bike tons of accolades and rewards. Personally, I owned the carbon version of this bike for a few years, and I absolutely loved it. It was the best do-it-all trail bike. I mean, the geometry is extremely adjustable, even more so than the Levo. yeah, it can just do a lot. So when Bimotal approached us to do this review and mentioned that this was the bike that they were going to leave with us, I was thrilled, obviously. I think it's a perfect bike to test for a couple of reasons. So this Stumpy Evo in the aluminum version, I mean, you can pick up one of these at a killer price. Like, whether you get it new or used, I mean, you're into this bike, you know, maybe a couple grand, maybe 3. So, and at that, if you wanted to have the bimodal system added to it, I mean, you are getting 2 bikes, possibly even 3, as I'll dive into a little bit later, but for the price of 1 entry-level emtb. So as far as ride quality goes, we're not really going to talk too much about the actual bike itself, as you know, you can put this on any bike you like. So what we really want to focus on is how easy it is to live with this system both on and off the bike. And also, you know, if you're somebody that wants to put this system on an existing bike, it means that you probably like doing both. You probably like riding your regular bike, but maybe sometimes you want an e-bike for certain days. How easy is it to switch back and forth? And I can tell you from firsthand experience, this is the only system that I know of that you can do that with. I mean, there's other modular systems out there where you can swap stuff out, but nothing comes close to how easy the bimodal system is. Now, I know that Transition has a bike where it's at one of their lightweight EMTBs that you can, well, it's marketed as being a 2-in-1 bike where you can take the battery out and ride it without the battery, but you still have the motor in there. Whereas this bike, you can take the motor and the battery out and you are left with the bike that you originally bought and the one that you wanted to have. So now, one of the things you can probably tell I'm breathing hard, this bike with the motor off has little to no drag. Right now, I've been riding with the motor mounted and the battery mounted, but having not used it. So honestly, it adds a little weight to the bike, but it pedals just as easy as it would without any of this stuff on it. Okay, let's get to the use of the throttle system with Bimotal. As you can see, it's on the left-hand side of the bars, and this one is mounted, meant to be pushed upwards, like that. Now, the easiest way to use it is if you slide your hand over and then just rotate your thumb upwards a little bit. It makes it easy to control the amount of power that comes through the motor. There's definitely a bit of a learning curve on this. I think that might be the toughest part of the bimodal system, and probably the biggest downfall at this point is just that the learning curve is going to be a little bit longer than that of like your traditional pedal assist e-mountain bikes. This one doesn't have a sensor, so you can actually coast along without pedaling using the throttle only, or you can use it while you're pedaling and throttling. So for me, the first time I rode this, there was definitely a part of me that just thought, oh man, that's gonna be that's too much to deal with, too much to handle. And the more I've ridden it, the more I've seen that, you know, like most things, yes, there are some drawbacks, but there's also advantages that you can get with this bike that other bikes, your traditional EMTBs, would not allow. In some cases, it's going to make technical climbing easier, but in some cases a little bit harder. So, you know, with someone using this system on a regular basis, like I said, the learning curve is going to be a little longer, but eventually you'll get the hang of it. And like I said before, it'll allow you to do things through technical terrain that you wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. All right, so how does this bike ride downhill? I mean, that's what you want to know, right? Ultimately, we all do this. Not all of us, but a lot of us do it so that when we've got the climb done, we got the downhill to enjoy. So earlier I said that this is kind of like 3 bikes in one, and this is what I mean by that. It's got a really powerful motor, and that motor is powerful enough to keep up with guys on full power e-bikes. However, it's light enough so that when you're going downhill, you don't even notice the weight. Kind of like what you get with the newer, like, lightweight SL e-bikes. And then, of course, the other advantage with this is the fact that you can take it off and use your regular bike. So you've got your regular bike, a full power e-bike, and an SL all in one. The downhill, you do not notice the weight of the battery whatsoever. It's amazing. Now, one of my big concerns with this bike was not just the weight of the battery, but the weight of that motor. It's sitting right there on that back wheel. Isn't that gonna make you feel weighted down? I mean, that's why most bikes these days have the motors in the middle. The mid-drive motors make the weight more balanced, right? Well, that's true. And if I hadn't ridden this bike myself, I would say there's no way that this bike, you're not gonna feel that backside weight. However, like I said, like, there's just not enough of that back there to really make a difference. Are you gonna notice it? Yes, there's a little bit. But right there on that downhill section, I wouldn't be able to tell whether I was on a stumpy with no motor or battery or a stumpy with it. So downhill performance is like nothing I've ridden. It even feels better to me than most of the SL e-bikes that are on the market today. This trail here is pretty twisty. And there is no difference riding this bike with or without the motor attached to that back wheel. It feels just as light and lively. In fact, I've ridden this trail many times, and I almost think this bike rides better with that extra weight added onto the back. Yeah, so good. Okay, so I've kind of gone over some of the things I like about this. Well, obviously nothing is perfect, and with this system, like everything else, there's some drawbacks, right? So what are those? Let's talk about that. So the first drawback I see with this, well, I guess other than a kind of extended longer learning curve, is the fact that once you put this system on your bike, you lose your water bottle holder, because the battery system doesn't fit in a conventional water bottle like some of the range extenders you see on mountain bikes today. It has its own holder. So at that point, like you say, you got to find some other way to carry your water. But you know, a drawback, definitely not a deal breaker. The other part of this is you're going to need to be a little bit mechanical to install it. They've got some great videos on how to do it on their website. And I would say most people could do it. But if you're like me, where instructions will say, hey, this should take you 2 hours, and you end up 2 days later taking it to the bike shop, well, maybe it's not for you. Or you can have it installed at your bike shop. So the other drawback is the lack of sensor, right? Your pedal assist, where this is relying on a thumb throttle. When your thumb is on that throttle, or like you can see mine is underneath of it, there's really no way to drop your thumb down while you're pedaling. If you need to drop your saddle, you've got to kind of choose one or the other. Another potential drawback with this is that motor, as it connects to the gear that's placed on the rear brake rotor, basically is subject to the size of that rotor. What I mean by that is, the larger your brake rotor is on that back wheel, the slower your max speed is going to be out of the motor. So if you've got like a 220 rotor in the back, I don't know what this one has, maybe I think it's 200, but I think for this bike with this rotor, I think the max speed that I'm going to get out of it is like around 16 miles an hour before it cuts out. So, you know, here where we live, the cutout limit for class 1 e-bikes is 20 miles an hour. So that brings up another drawback. Speaking of class 1 e-bikes, technically, even though the max speed on this is below the limit, the power rating is well below the limit, because it is driven by a thumb throttle. Technically, it is not a class 1 e-bike. So, you know, you got to be careful with what you're doing there. I would say the last drawback, and this is subjective, but it's worth mentioning, and I'm sure you guys have been able to hear it, and that is the motor noise. You know, it comes on, it goes off. I don't know, it's just something. I am one of those guys, I'm kind of sensitive when it comes to motor noises, but you know, it's there. Kind of bugs. I don't love it. It seems like it's, as far as e-bike motors, emtb motors go, I think it's probably the loudest I've ridden, which I don't love. So as far as getting back to where this bike will shine, I really think that this type of riding right here, where there's a flat, well not flat, but a fire road, nice smooth climb up to your descent, this is the type of riding where this bike shines. And if you are especially sensitive to that weight of that motor, once you get up to the top, you can take the motor off, you can take the battery off, throw them in your pack, and basically be riding your regular bike down. This is the closest thing to an all-in-one shuttle bike that I know of on the market today, which is pretty cool, because ultimately that's what a lot of these bikes are for.
Bryce covered a lot of ground, so I'll just summarize a few of his key points. This is a really awesome tool that can essentially double the number of bikes that you already have. You can enjoy the benefits of an electric bike and then quickly swap back to analog mode to keep everything you loved about the original ride. Handling changes on the trail feel minimal, but for riders who are sensitive and really in tune to small changes, you can take the motor and battery off and the handling changes pretty much disappear altogether. The power that this thing delivers is seriously impressive. Being able to move more quickly through tough, slow climbs means you're going to get a lot more out of your rides. You'll have more time for the fun stuff or just extend your rides altogether. Now, it's a retrofit system, so there are a few trade-offs, like giving up your bottle cage, hearing a little more motor noise compared to a fully integrated e-bike, or dealing with some extra cable routing that wasn't there before. But the payoff is huge. You get to keep the heart and soul of the bike that you already love. So after tons of miles with the Elevate, the word that I kept coming back to was smart. The design is just clever. It's really the kind of thing where you can have your cake and eat it too. Slap it onto your favorite bike, get help when you need it, and remove the system when you don't want to deal with the trade-offs. The motor itself is just impressively powerful. That's honestly what surprised me the most. This thing packs an incredible punch for its size. Now for me, pedal assist is the end of the rainbow here. That'll really unlock the bike for technical climbs and bring it even closer to the performance of a dedicated emtb. But honestly, I don't think you need to wait for that to enjoy this system right now. In a lot of ways, it reminds me of the original iPhone. Combining your phone, iPod, or other music player and a web browser into one sleek device felt revolutionary at the time, and it didn't even launch with the App Store. Once third-party apps came along a year later, it unlocked even more potential and changed how much you could do with one device. And that's how I view the Elevate. It's an amazing foundation, the kind of thing that'll turn heads on the trail when you show off how useful it is, and when you pop it off in seconds, yeah, you're gonna drop a few jaws. But it's already great for helping you do more of what you love more easily. And in the future, when it evolves with pedal assist and even more capability, I think it could narrow the gap even more with full-powered emtbs. That'll do it for this review. Let me know what questions or comments you have about the Bimotal Elevate down below. And if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe. I'm Griffin with Electric Bike Report. I'll see you on the next ride.